Like, what kind of start to a company is stealing someone else's name?
Did they pay them? I forgot.
I don't know where that sits.
You know that man is dead. Sorry, I said that. Sorry. You know that man had his Facebook account deactivated. He sent a message, hey guys, I'm going to take some time away from Facebook. I'm moving to a country that I have no relationships in.
I'm moving to the South Pole for long-term research.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Super Agile Bros. You already know what it is. It's your boy, Bradston, in the game with the boys, the brothers themselves. Kyle, tell the people, say hey.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Yes. And of course, the boy Steve himself. What's up, Steve?
Hello.
Hey, there we go. That's a cheery Steve today. You know, Steve's on his best behavior because recently we had another Steve.
This man's edging from my job, my life.
Let it be known if this Steve acts up, he's ready. He's ready to take his place, and I'm ready to. We'll do what we got to do if the time comes.
Identity theft is not a joke.
So, but yeah, man. Hey, you know, happy 2022. We already in here. We've been here for a while, a little bit over half a month, y'all. So it's hopefully gonna be a good year. It's been crazy already, but you know, we're here to make it even better. So today's gonna be a good episode. It's gonna be a fun one. This is something actually I appreciate Kyle suggesting this topic, because this is something I think about a lot randomly. Kind of randomly I think about this. But we're gonna be talking about VR, or as the people in the industry say, virtual realness. So, virtual reality. Virtual realness. So we're going to get into it, and really we're just going to talk about virtual reality, and really mainly, does it really have staying power? Is it going to be mainstream? Are people really going to be using it in the future? Are we going to be doing, what's that movie that Steven Spielberg made
No, I'm not going to talk about
that. No, like, what was the movie called?
Ready Player One?
Ready Player One. They said in unison. Yeah, are we going to be living in the Metaverse via VR?
I forgot Steven Spielberg directed that movie.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, there was a distinct lack of children actors. They were all teenagers.
Is that something Steven Spielberg does?
I just think a lot about E.T. just in my day-to-day life. And Super 8.
I mean, they were spunky 20-somethings, I think. They were childish.
Are 20-somethings children now? Is that how much you have aged?
I think so.
I feel like there's just some actors, though, who will be like 45 and they can act like they're 16. And you're
Tom Holland.
It's Zendaya. For sure, Zendaya.
Yeah,
Zendaya.
Most of them.
Yeah, they definitely look like they're like 12. So.
And then the opposite of that is like Steve Buscemi.
Oh my gosh.
Who's like probably like 25, but he looks like he's 80.
Yes.
Willem Dafoe has always looked the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
Timeless.
He's aged well. Aged well.
Yeah.
Keanu.
The vampires, yeah.
Yeah, man. Some people just got it. And I feel like Keanu's the type of person who wouldn't do plastic surgery, you know? Like, he just seems like he has that type of vibe.
That's not his brand.
Exactly.
You can't star in The Matrix if you've had plastic surgery. Come on.
Oh, man.
In the contract.
When you get too old, they just replace you with a younger person. That's just...
They do.
Everything you see is real. I still have to watch it. I have to figure out what they did with Morpheus, like what that is all about.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen it,
He
Kyle?
got replaced.
You saw it, Kyle?
I saw trailers, though. And there's a different guy.
Let's watch that. Let's forget everything else we were going to do. Let's watch.
And watch The Matrix?
Right now.
I mean, I've just heard it's underwhelming. I mean, but that's not... I'm not too surprised that it wasn't that great. You know, it's like, you know, like, just let it be what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't need to reboot The Matrix. Or I guess not reboot.
They didn't reboot it. I guess they rebooted him.
They just want more money from the franchise.
I mean, money's nice, so I ain't mad at them. But speaking of The Matrix, we're going to talk about virtual reality. So, I mean, that's honestly the most realist virtual reality ever, right? So, I'm not even going to ask that question. Do you guys think the virtual reality will one day be like The Matrix? My question really for y'all is...
Thank you.
what is y'all's overall take on virtual reality in general? I mean, do you vibe with it? Do you feel like it has staying power? Like, we can go around the horn. I just want to hear what you guys take on it, and then we can just get deep into virtual reality, what we've experienced, what we think about it, and all that jazz. So
you sound like you have an opinion, Steve. I hear you laughing.
I've never heard that expression before, around the horn. It makes perfect sense. But
really? You've never heard that?
You never heard that?
I've never heard that.
What?
Steve, you're the most cultured of us swine. I figured you would know such a phrase.
Now I've heard it. Thank you for saying so. I do feel like I heard a lot of things in my youth, but this was the first.
I love how he's like, yes, I agree with you.
You are beneath me.
Far be it from me to say no.
To say that I'm more cultured than you, but you are correct. I know another language.
I was just talking about how I had some friends talking about how this kid's been playing Pokemon, and he ignores all the NPCs. He just mashes A and doesn't read any of the dialogue. And we were all talking about how, when we were kids, we read all the dialogue. We talked to all the NPCs and read all the signs. And I was like, yeah, Pokemon Blue was where I heard the phrase, "I'm just joshing you."
Really?
And I have said that, and people don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, meaning people don't know what that phrase means?
Yeah.
Huh.
What does it mean in reference to Pokemon?
It's what Bill says when you go talk to him for the first time. He's become a Pokemon, and he basically makes some joke acting like he's an actual Pokemon that can talk, and he's like, "No, or maybe he says I'm not joshing you, but basically he's trying to get your help, and he's like, "Look, I need your help for real. Like, don't run away in terror."
Huh. Yeah, I mean, what were you gonna say, Kyle?
Yeah, I knew of the phrase outside of Pokemon, but man, that's very localized.
Yeah. That was a strong localization.
You know, it's sad because, not that it's sad, it's hard to say where I even learned things from when I was younger, because I played a lot of video games, I watched a lot of TV, and you know, that was available to me. So I feel like in many ways, like, who knows where I originally heard, because my parents didn't say, "Am I joshing you?" They're Jamaicans. So, yeah, I heard it somewhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I have no idea where I heard it. But that for some reason, sorry, my voice is like exploding right now. Yeah, that one stuck out to me. I remember being like, "What the heck? Joshing me? His name's not Josh, it's Bill."
Ooh.
And this is before the internet, so you can't even go, "What is joshing mean?"
Like, I just had to make it up through context clues.
Pretend like you knew, then use it wrong in front of people.
Yeah.
Yo, when I was in high school, I took man, I did so bad in this class, AP U.S. history, and I was really bad in the class. But my teacher, we had like a substitute, and the substitute was like, "I'm going to teach you guys a new word today. The word is boondoggle."
Oh my gosh.
Like, boondoggle?
Yeah, I still don't know that word.
Boondoggle is basically like you're in a difficult situation, or like there's a whole bunch of mitigating factors that causes issues, and you're in kind of a quagmire, per se.
You're in a pickle.
A pickle, right? So I'd never heard that word in my life. You know, I'm probably like 16 at this point. Literally that night, it was on a Friday, come home, my parents are watching 2020, and I knew, and it was a Friday because 2020 comes on Friday, and there's a farmer in like Kansas or something, like, and he's like, "Yeah, you know, my family, we're in quite a boondoggle with this situation," and I was like, "What in the world?" Like, I'd never heard that phrase, but
you started seeing the Matrix and how things are connected.
Whoa, deja vu.
So, boondoggle, Josh,
boondoggle.
Use them in your daily language.
I think we now need a word of the day.
Man,
I can help with that. I have a dictionary.
Man, our word of the day, it'll come through conversation. We can't choose it. We have to let it choose us. Oh, you're saying word of the day like Pee-wee's house or whatever? Like
the Playhouse?
Playhouse? Like,
if I ever make a VR like world, I'm definitely going to screw with people and have really obvious deja vu moments just to make people think that the agents are coming.
I feel like in VR, it'll just seem like a glitch. Like, like as a gamer, you'll just be like, yeah, that's just a glitch. Keep it moving. Like, you won't even think of it,
Well, then I'll do the opposite. I'll make it actually mean something. And only the experienced players will be like, did you say deja vu? Yeah.
So what's your take on VR? I'll start with you, Steve. Like, you seem like you already are all about it. The metaverse is real in your heart.
No, I'm not really. I think VR is mostly a gimmick. I think outside of very specific applications, especially games, and even then, really it's outside of very specific like game genres. I think it's borderline useless, if not worse than like other interface styles. I think AR is probably a lot more useful, like augmented reality, where you're like imposing virtual reality onto the real world. So that could be really cool, but that would still be combined with like normal, I guess you would say like 2D screened interfaces. I think virtual reality interfaces are clunky and just. I mean, people say they're more intuitive, and I get that, but how intuitive can it really be? Because you're trying to emulate the real world, but you're still like limited in the digital world, and so it's not very intuitive if you have motions to like tie your shoes. Let's talk about games, right? You'd have motions to tie your shoes, or shoot a gun, or pick up ammo, but then you can't like open a door, or you can't like like if someone forgets a detail, then everything breaks. Or if, I don't know, there's like some colloquialisms that don't translate, that someone doesn't account for. I can't think of an action-based colloquialism, but I feel like there might be some.
No, I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I can feel that. We can get more into that, but no, that's a good thoughts. Kyle, what about you, sir?
So, I really like virtual reality. I'm a big fan. I have the first Oculus Quest, and what are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at Facebook.
Aha!
I'm laughing at poor Oculus for getting bought out and ruined by Facebook.
Yeah, it's a shame what happened. The device itself, though, isn't too bad.
Yeah.
Like the headsets, I won't lie and say that they're stylish or comfortable, because they're really, like, compared to what they used to be, sure, they're better. But compared to, like, if you want somebody to wear that thing for an hour, it's nowhere near that. The experiences I have had in it, I think one thing that virtual reality has over other things is kind of going back to your point about something being intuitive, is like it is kind of immersive by accident, or like inherently immersive because it's taking control of one of our primary senses, which is our eyes, or our vision. And so just having that, I think, is like a superpower that VR just has over other games. And so I agree that a lot of things still aren't as intuitive as they could be, but in comparison to, moving a controller, which feels good in its own right, moving a control stick or pressing a button, that haptic feedback is great, but it still doesn't compare to like doing it yourself, moving your full body in VR to do things. It's on another level. And so I hope that, overall it gets better, because I'd like to see how far it goes. I don't want to be 80 years old when it gets there, but I think eventually it'll be better than it is now.
Yeah.
I like VR.
I feel like I'm maybe in the middle ground. And I just want to make this side note. I was saying this to the guys before the recording, but that I have a neighbor who has a truck who like will pull up and like be super loud. Like legitimately, like I guess today he wants to disrespect me, but like he pulled up in front of the house and just left the engine running. Like it's just running right now. So I'm like, come on, y'all might hear for a while, so I apologize. But anyway, so yeah, going back to VR, Yeah, I feel like I'm in the middle. I think VR is one of those things that Steve put it in a way like it's trying to be real, but it can never be real, and it
Mm-hmm.
needs to stop trying to be real. I feel like that's his biggest weakness. Like, have y'all ever heard of the phrase "uncanny valley" in
Mm-hmm.
terms of
Yes.
like robots and stuff? How like if you try to make a robot too lifelike, it seems like basically a dead person
Uh huh.
because it's just like there's no unless you make it exactly like a person. Like we as humans can easily detect the difference between a human being and somebody
Right.
who's not human just from
Yeah.
like subtle movements, eye muscles, just speech patterns, like everything about them. So I feel like the same thing comes with our visual world in general. Like you can't put a screen in front of our eyes and then we're convinced that it's real.
Mm-hmm.
We can be convinced that if it can like kind of going back to our movie discussion, like it can emulate a feeling very well, like oh I'm alone, it's dark, it's bright, I'm free, I'm like things like that, but I don't think it can ever like become the Matrix. I just feel like it has to in some way kind of going back to what Steve said, I feel like augmented reality is better because it doesn't feel like it's breaking that boundary.
Yeah.
So,
Mm, yeah.
I mean, personally, I think VR is cool. I have experiences that I can share, as we go on. But like, I think overall, I don't think it'll ever get beyond the point of just being a thing that we do. Like, video games are a thing that you do, but they'll never be like,
Practical.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Exactly. Like, it's more of like,
It
there's
won't replace like a day to day thing.
Exactly. It can augment a thing. It can make it better, right? Maybe training or
Mm-hmm.
watching a movie by yourself or something. But I don't know. So I don't know. I mean, you guys. I mean, it sounds like Kyle. Sounds like you've clearly had many virtual reality experiences. I mean, what has been y'all's experience doing virtual reality? Has it been something where like you're like, man, I want to do this more and more and more and more and more, or is it like, oh, this was cool, I had a fun experience here, I'll check it out later, when it gets better. Like, where y'all right now as far as like virtual reality, where technology from the experiences you had, or if you haven't had any experiences, what are your, whatever.
Sure. Yeah, I'm very lightly invested. I think I had yeah, so I had the Google Cardboard headset, and then later I actually got a nicer Google, I guess, Dream headset for free with the phone I bought.
Ooh.
And so both of those use my cell phone as a screen, and you kind of just slip the phone into the headset and you put it on. And it was a fun gimmick. I didn't play any games. I didn't find any games that were really interesting. I think the coolest thing I found was like a solar system kind of like tour where
Ooh.
you're like in a ship and it's just kind of like taking you around this, looking at the planets and stuff like that. Yeah, tours are fun where you're not really interacting very much.
Mm-hmm.
I like Google Maps integrations where you can become Street View and look around. That's pretty rad.
Mm.
I didn't play very many games, partially because my phones just aren't that powerful, and it wasn't like good enough to be fun for me. Let me think what else. I did try one time plugging my phone into the wall so it would be charging while I was
Ooh.
using it, and my phone shut down like in 5 minutes. I'm like,
The
oh,
heat
overheating is definitely a thing with
yeah.
smartphones. Did
Glad your
not
face
consider
didn't
that.
melt.
Yeah. I think I still have that dream somewhere around. Maybe. But yeah, in terms of like what I'm looking forward to, I have played. All right, so I played my friend's PSVR, and he had a few games that were interesting. Beat Saber took the world by storm.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those things that like really thrives in VR. Half-Life Alyx looks incredible, and it's one of those games where everyone says, "Oh, it's super intuitive and super
hmm
immersive." So I would like to see like what level of detail they did there. Um, there's a few other games I played that are really neat. So yeah, I'm on the market in the future for like a nice headset so I can play Alex and whatever else, groundbreaking games. But right now, there's not really anything that exists that I'm like, I have to go out and buy hardware for this.
Yeah, I feel like that's exactly where I'm at. Like, there's nothing that like has like okay. I'll just give my experience. So, actually, what got me into virtual reality stuff was game development. I actually made a game. Well, I adapted one of my games that I had made previously, Chaos Cube, that nobody will ever play ever unless you like. Maybe I think Kyle has played it, Chaos Cube. But anyway,
I think I have.
Oh, I think I've played it.
Yeah, it's
just on Android, right?
Yeah, it was just a box. Well, it was on the computer. Anywho, it was just a game that you played, and it was just like a lot of particles and stuff or whatever. So I just kind of wanted to adapt it. So I got a phone, and I got the Oculus. Which one was the phone one? Not the Quest. Definitely not the Rift. I can't remember which one, but I got the Oculus. Huh?
Was it the Oculus Go? Is that one?
No, it was before they switched it to Go. It was something else. I can't remember the name. If I saw it, I'd be like, oh, that's what it's called. But anyway, I got the mobile one where you can slide your phone into it, and was developing in it. So for me, it was very much a hardware understanding how the tech works. One of the biggest things was, like you said, Steve, like UI. How does UI work in virtual reality? Because you can't just press a button. It's kind of like a touch and hold, and how does it show up on your screen? So I was having a lot of fun experimenting in it, and because it was a lot of my stuff and I didn't have a lot of high fidelity stuff, like, it never really felt like anything. It wasn't until later when I downloaded some demos, and it was on one of my phones, like my HTC something, whatever, and I had this demo on my from the Oculus store that was like where you could listen to music, but you'd also be in a 3D like soundscape kind of place, or a 3D world.
Yeah.
And there's a song that to this day is one of my favorite songs. To this day, and it just so happened to be the first song that was played in my first experience with virtual reality. It was too perfect. I was like, okay, I know I need to be in a dark room because there's a lot of light bleed through the side. So I went into my room, turned off all the lights, put towels on the doors, like tried to get as much darkness as possible. And the song is called I Remember by Dead Mouse. Dead Mouse. And
Mouse.
And it was like I was on this like carpet, this like genie carpet, and I was going around this world with like fish flying in the sky and all this magical. And literally, I was like,
you were on a trip.
Yeah, son. I was like, am I high right now? Like, it was literally like I was in another world, and I was like, this is crazy, right? And it was just the perfect mix of music and what the visuals were, and it was like kind of like a player, so it would play other music. So when it changed to another song, it didn't feel right, and I was like, and I took it off. And it was very strange that, like, thinking back on it, like, wow, like, if I hadn't had that experience with that music, maybe that whole experience would have been completely different, right?
Yeah.
Then, probably the experience that stands out the most, because most of my experience with VR has been mobile, the mobile version. I have used the PSVR, but my other experience was, and maybe, Steve, you got a chance to check this out. It was a horror game.
Yes, I knew it.
And I have video of it, and I wonder if I can even still finish it. I've never finished it. It's just too much for me.
Is that the one like facing your fears or something? What was it?
It's
you're like in a haunted house, and you have to do puzzles in each room.
Collect things. You don't have to do a puzzle. You just have to walk around the house and collect things. That's it. It's one of those type. And it's badly done. It's like in Unity. Like, it's clearly in Unity.
Asset
flip for the most part. Has that, that old school, like, Unity 3D billboarding text? Mm-hmm. That, like, it has that in there. I was like, yo, this is Unity. And it's clearly, like, was made by, like, one dude. But let me tell you something, bruh. It's, even though it is, like, a low-rent game, you're in the living room with all your friends standing around you, laughing at you, son. That thing will send you. Like, it's crazy. Maybe Steve, you remember that, but like, it's. And I remember one of our roommates was like, "Man, I'm not scared of this. This is not gonna make me jump. This is not gonna make me do nothing." And I was like, "Okay, cool." and put it on him. This man swinging in the air. Like, it's legit. It's I got video. Maybe I'll drop it in the Discord.
One of our friends came over. We had a bunch of people over, and we were all taking turns playing it. And one guy, I kid you not, was like, jumped up in the air, like straight up in the air, and landed, and his knees went out, and he just fell on the ground.
Yeah, I missed it.
Terrible.
I walked
It was
out
carpet. It was fine. He was all right.
Yeah,
but it was so funny.
He was resilient. He was young.
Yeah, he was a young man. Young buck.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about VR, man, is that I agree that the closer they try to make things real, that the more they're going to fail. But even the most lousy experiences, like imagine if that was just a game you played like on your PlayStation, yeah, it'd be trash but there's something convincing, I guess, about it being like right up in your face, and it's like you are here, you know it's not real, but
yeah.
It's crazy what immersion can do. I heard it said somewhere that like the brain, man, it's almost like I guess how dreams work, where the brain like can't distinguish imaginary from real when things are like based on proximity or something like that. Like since it's so close, because you can't like you can escape VR easily, right, by taking off the headset, but it's like that's not your first instinct because yeah, you're in this world now, and so you got to figure out what to do in this world. It's insane.
Right.
Yeah. Like there's a study that there's been done where basically they'll take people who are say a racist person, right, who doesn't like black people. Hey, I'm black, and oh no, they don't like me. So what they do is they make them read a book about a black person or watch a movie about a black person, right? And they found that somebody reading or watching something sometimes was so like your brain kind of takes it almost as if it's your experience. That if a person who was extremely racist watched one movie that was like a biopic or read one book that was a biopic, their say racist or whatever their bent of negativity would go down a little bit just from that one experience.
They would lose prejudice based.
Yeah, they would lose prejudice, or their view would alter a little bit post their experience, how they viewed that race, or maybe people who are gay or people who are X, whatever you want to. They did it on a lot of different things, but it's so interesting how something that isn't real per se, quote unquote, a book or a movie, can still affect our brain on a very real level. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy,
man. And in those experiences, I'm sure it's like tapping into things like empathy, and then if you're putting yourself in their shoes, then it's like when something happens to you, it feels so much more real. And so even ridiculous things like Beat Saber, I think, is novel, but it's like it convinces you that you're playing the music and that you're swinging these lightsabers, and like you're in control of things, and it's like it hijacks all those different sensations. So that's crazy, but it makes sense.
I want to make a VR game that just turns everyone the same color, so you literally
Which color?
Don't see color. It'll be like some like non-human color, but
so everybody sees the same color, like they're blue or green or something like that.
So then,
the only reviews is I want to change my color.
So then the racist people will be like, I don't see color anymore. Not since
That's
the game.
That's even worse.
Well, if it's VR, they don't see their own color, do they?
Yeah, you would see your hands. Your hands would also be blue.
Give them gloves.
But I feel like that's like.
Hey, you chose a color. You said blue.
I said blue earlier.
You did? Oh,
some non-human color, and then I said blue.
Non-human. Yeah. So I had an interesting experience. So this is like where like VR to me is kind of struggles, is where I don't know if you guys have ever had a VR experience where it's instead of like a video game, because I mean there's a whole conversation we can have about why video games are the primary use of VR right now, but there's many reasons. But one of the reasons ways that it's been used a lot is like for like movies and educational things. So one time I went to the Underground Railroad Museum in, I believe, was it Kentucky? I can't remember. Cincinnati, somewhere. So anyway,
man, you know they don't have VR in Kentucky.
So I went to the Underground Railroad Museum, and they had just opened up the VR experience, the Rosa Parks VR experience. Now, the reason I was at the museum was because I was waiting for this wedding stuff, and I had a lot of time, and I was like, yo, I really want to check this out, and I have like 8 hours to kill. This would be a great place to go. I literally spent 8 hours in there. It was an amazing experience. If you haven't, check out the Underground Railroad Museum. It is so incredible. But anyway, Rosa Parks experience. So I paid a little bit extra to do it, like $15.
Oh my gosh.
Because, I mean, they sold it to me as if this is an experience. Man, nothing against them. But it was just some kids sitting at a table, and they had some like bus seats, not even bus seats, just some chairs. And they had them like in the corner, and the kids were on their phone, not paying no attention. And I walk up, I say, hey, I got a ticket. He's like, oh, you want to do this? Like,
oh, he was surprised.
Like, he's like, yeah. And he's like, okay, give me a second. Hey, Chris. And Chris like, yeah. He's like, yo, get the thing going. So they go get it. And it's just the thing that I have at home, which I can't remember right now, the Oculus, whatever. And
for your phone?
The phone one.
Bruh.
Oh,
how to use their phone?
And they give you headphones that are like over the ear. I was like, man, these things look so nasty. But anyway, I put them over my head. I put it on. And I think the most disappointing part about it was that it wasn't a 3D experience like a video game or something like that. It was just a movie, and I was just watching it, and I was just sitting there. It was one of those like 3D, like
3D, so you can still turn around and look at stuff.
Like the Google, Maps camera kind of thing, the whole 360 camera. So I was sitting there, but I couldn't move. Number one, I was just reliving the experience of Rosa Parks, which was cool, and what it was. But the thing is, video looks so terrible in VR. Like, you'd have to have the most, like 12K or something, because your eyes just see every pixel. The colors are washed out. The sound was fine. I had no issue with the sound, but it just felt like I was just watching a movie with headset on, and my face was plastered next to a screen. And I was so disappointed, I'm like, don't do this,
That stinks. So
were you $15 disappointed?
Were you Rosa Parks in the...
No, I was just a bystander, I believe.
Oh.
I don't think I was Rosa.
You were the guy main telling character. Her to move?
Yeah, I was like in the middle seat or something.
Now that would be pretty interesting to be on that side of things. Like, you're the villain in this scenario.
It's like you just sat there and the bus driver yelled at her, and it was... so I don't know. It's like, I feel like not every experience needs to be in VR. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
I don't know how y'all feel about that. It feels like it's like one of those things that people are going to just be like, oh, let's make everything VR. Go to the car wash. Put this VR headset on.
Yeah, it's kind of that gimmick, I guess, like kind of what Steve was talking about earlier, having the maps and stuff and those 3D rotations. It's cool, but it's like once VR headsets that can do that on a whim are affordable, would you still strap on a headset versus just pull up maps on your phone?
Exactly. And I mean, I don't know if Brad saw this, but there was this thing going around. I know Kyle saw it, where apparently, I don't think this is actually what it was, but at the time, the story was that Walmart was like releasing a proof of concept for a virtual storefront. Did you see this, Brad?
Sounds vaguely familiar, but no.
Oh, man. So apparently this came out years ago, but it only became popular like in the last couple of months because of Facebook, or because of Meta.
The Metaverse.
Metaverse. But yeah, it's pretty abysmal. It's basically just this like walkthrough of a scenario where somebody's shopping at Walmart, but it's in VR. And so you're watching this person like look around, and the shopping cart doesn't move. Everything just stays still. And you can reach out and pick stuff off the shelf and put it in your cart, and it rings you up based on what's in your cart. And this really obnoxious like 2D like Cortana looking avatar girl popped up She didn't look like Cortana, but she was like showing up. Not Cortana. She was showing up in the corner like
Clippy.
What's her face from Borderlands 2?
Oh,
Angel.
Oh, yeah.
Not Aerith. That's
Was it Angel?
Not Angel.
that's close. I don't remember.
Whatever.
I
It
know
doesn't
what
matter.
Yeah.
Basically this avatar, which is clearly just a girl they recorded talking, but she's like, "Did you know that this is on sale?" And instead of moving your shopping cart around the 3D store, they basically moved the store around you. So like she'd be like, "All right, let's go to the electronics section," and all the shelves would go underground and new ones would pop up. And
Like the scene in the Matrix with the weapons.
Okay.
Yes, it looked like exactly like that, except way, way worse.
So
Really
much
bad.
worse. Like it was low poly assets. It was
Low
really
poly
bad.
assets.
And
You
this is
couldn't,
a
like I
proof
said,
of
you can't move
concept?
around. Huh?
This is a proof of concept.
I guess so. Yeah.
It looks like it was officially licensed by Walmart though.
Yes, it was the Walmart thing.
Like the hit detection, like the person who was doing the experience was struggling to pick up the milk, and they left it in.
Yeah. That was so funny. Yeah, like in this POC, they were fumbling with the milk, and I cracked up. It's like you can't show how bad this interface is in your proof of concept.
So
So,
bad.
so what was it? Was it supposed to replace something? What was it?
There's no context. I have no idea.
It seemed like they wanted it to be an immersive shopping experience.
Right.
Because she was talking about stuff like, oh, we can detect on your smart fridge that you already have this item, but it's going to expire on this date. And I think that's why that it like suggested the milk. But then it was like, she was like, well, I can see you already have some, so do you want to put this item back? And then that's why they were fumbling with it, because they were trying to get it out of their cart, but they couldn't move the cart, so they had to like reach over. But it was virtual reality, so it was like, where are the bounds? It was just super awkward.
Wait.
bad.
How can you have a more immersive shopping experience than
Than
just going to the store and shopping?
Exactly.
I don't understand why this
You
is
know, without people.
It's a really great alternative to physically going to a store and like picking out stuff. Going on a website and just scrolling through items you want and clicking add to cart and clicking checkout.
Nobody has time for that, Steve.
This is exactly why I think like motion controls never worked in video games, because you misunderstand why who gamers are and what their goal is, right? Like my goal when I play video games, I'm sorry, is not to do physical activity. Like, my goal is to sit myself on the couch, to play some game, and veg out for a little bit, enjoy myself. I'm sorry. I mean, some people enjoy working out, bless those people, bless their hearts and their souls. I'm not one of those people. And I think that like the virtual reality sometimes doesn't understand that nobody's trying to do something that's going to make their life more difficult. Like, to do a thing in virtual reality, you know what I'm saying?
That's not strictly true. Well, that's not strictly true, especially with games. Sometimes the draw of the game is that you're using your whole body. But to your point, you don't want to shoehorn that effect or that side effect into games that isn't the point. Like if you're playing let's say Legend of Zelda and you just want to run around killing people and fighting moblins and collecting jewels, I don't want to have to be fumbling with the sword. Like I just want to push a button. Like the fighting should be intuitive, it should be fast, it should be effortless.
Swinging that Wii remote.
Yeah.
If you're bowling,
then yeah, give me fun motion controls and let me bowl. The Joy-Cons are great. Some of those 1-2 switch mini games on the Nintendo Switch are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are super
Rumble
goofy.
is next level.
Yeah, some of them are super goofy, but some of them are legitimately like really fun.
I think that calls out a point, like with all motion, like in games, is that when they're like at the heart of them, like recreating a simulation of something that you couldn't necessarily do, like swinging the Wii remote to swing a sword at monsters, I get it. Swinging a Wii remote to jump across a gap or something doesn't make any sense. And they've done that multiple times in the shovelware. Like I think the Indiana Jones game or something did that. It was really weird. But then, so like doing that stuff in VR makes sense too. And so like scenario based games, and I think Brad, you mentioned it earlier, like the educational stuff where I know they use it like for firemen, maybe police or something, where they put them in like real life scenarios and they're interacting with that stuff, but it's like a safe environment.
Yeah.
Like that stuff I think is where motion in games shines, especially in VR.
Yeah, I definitely think it has to, like, it goes back to the, like, you know, what we were talking about in learning games, other things. It's like, you can't just shoehorn this stuff on everything. It has to really make sense. Like, yeah, like bowling makes sense to have motion controls. Because in a bowling game, you want to feel connected. You want to feel like there's skill involved. And, like, since, like, bowling is just, like, seemingly on a controller is kind of like more of like it would feel weird, right? It's like, okay.
It'd be like Mario Golf, where you have gauges and
Yes,
and
exactly.
timers, and you have to push the buttons at the right time. And it's like, cool, I just swung a golf club.
Mm-hmm. But it's not really
buttons.
about playing golf. It's about playing Mario Golf. Like, you're not mimicking. You're not like, oh man, I'm a better golfer now that I've played Mario Golf. Like, you're like, I'm a better Mario Golf player now that I've played Mario Golf. You know, like
I'm saying that motion controls lend themselves better to, say, a golf game. Than buttons do.
Yeah, and my point is that it has to be something that has like a direct 1-to-1 correlation to movement that makes sense, right? You know, like boxing made sense, bowling, tennis, physical activity for the most part. I'm not even mad at them for having motion controls in what you call it,
Skyrim.
Skyrim, Skyward Sword.
I was serious, but please go on.
But yeah, like I don't like, because that makes sense. Like, that's a physical thing. I think the problem is, does it enhance the experience or does it hinder it? Right? Like, now I'm fighting the motion controls instead of like fighting the enemy. I mean, honestly, to this day, I say this a lot. I think that not Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword is the hardest Zelda game because you're fighting the enemy and the motion controls.
That's a shame.
The Lizalfos in this one dungeon, legitimately, they were a boss fight to me. I had to really go in there and be like, all right, we got this, you know, and I'm just getting worked by these little lizards that are making that little noise, right? And then one time, 2 of them jumped in the room, and I was like, I gotta run.
You're done.
Like, I had to flee.
So, in that scenario, it isn't necessarily like the concept of the motion controls that takes away from the game. It's the fact that the implementation wasn't good enough to meet that standard.
Yes.
And I've heard that people who play Skyward Sword on the Switch with the gyro controls with the Joy-Con that have better, like more precise motion is apparently better.
Huh.
Unsurprising.
Not to mention, they gave you the option to just not use motion controls
which is what they should have done from the start.
Yeah.
Son, if they had just let me turn it off, I probably would have beat that game.
Well, now's your time, man. If you want to play on the Switch.
I'm not repaying them to play a game that made me angry. I'm gonna beat it on the Wii, the way it was designed to beat.
just to spite them for making such a terrible motion control game.
Yeah,
I'm gonna play this game you made. I hate it. So, like, I always bring up Metroid Prime. So, in the first 2 Metroid Prime games were on GameCube, and they had a pretty bonkers control scheme because it's on the GameCube, and like they didn't want to use the normal like twin stick configuration for shooters, and it was kind of wild. But then the third game came out on the Wii, and it used motion controls for the it wasn't really motion controls per se. It was mostly just point controls, and it was really good. It felt awesome. Like, it made it that much more immersive. And then they actually re-released the first 2 games on the Wii as well, and they backported the motion controls into the first 2 games, and that's the only way I play now. I've played that game. I played that trilogy multiple times with the motion controls. Like, it's so much fun. But there's not a lot of... I mean, the Wii is good because it's literally like a pointer in your hand. I feel like it might not work as well for a normal controller that has gyro aiming. I do like gyro aiming, but the Wiimote was something special.
Yeah, I think
pointing.
Yeah, I think the thing is, like, it makes sense in those games, right? Prime, because pretty much you're playing a light gun game if you were to break it down, like, oh, like I'm
True.
shooting at the screen and my arm is kind of just my arm, right? So it kind of
Yeah, her
feels
arm
right.
is literally the gun.
So it
So
makes perfect sense. Like, and that's, they got lucky almost on that one. But like even when I think about VR, like I think about it as like I'm playing a game, like say take Skyrim in VR, right? I mean, there's like so many issues with VR as a whole when you try to just put it in gaming. Like, oh, I'm gonna make it a game. This is the best way to do it. Like the first thing to note is like VR only really simulates the upper portion of your body at this point, right?
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
your literally just your hands in your face, right? So everything else is kind of like disconnected. You're not feeling anything, which is fair. You're not even necessarily feeling anything with your hands per se, unless it has like a haptic feedback or something. But like, I feel like they try to like put games that kind of fundamentally are kind of full body experiences, and you just feel a little weird. And then there's the big issue of just motion in VR, right? Like
Ooh.
the big problem that like, well, maybe it'll get better over time. Maybe they'll find a way to fix it, but it plagues it at this moment. Like if you're somebody who gets kind of motion sick playing first person shooters on a screen, man, your life is done in VR. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
right. Yeah, and I mean it also changes. So usually in a game, especially in shooters, like movement isn't really the focus. Like you kind of take it for granted that to get from point A to point B, you just point the thumbstick in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's about traversal. It's about you know, how to like defend yourself from enemies on the way there. You're not really worried about the act of movement, but suddenly in VR, everything's about, you have to worry about movement.
And a lot of VR games try to solution this by having like a teleport, which the games that I played, it's very disorienting. And I played both the ones that cut to black when you teleport and the ones that just move you to the spot. And to be honest, I think it's a little bit like it takes longer to get sick from it than a constant moving, but you still get sick after a while because it's just so disconnected from what you're actually doing. And so I've pretty much avoided all experiences that involve a lot of moving, because like the swaying, especially in shooting games when you're swaying left and right and it tracks your head movement, that stuff feels really good. But like you were saying, when you have to traverse an area, it just falls apart.
Wait, Kyle.
Yeah.
I have a question because you kind of were saying that you're kind of a fan of VR, right? Like, if like, what do you like about not that we hate VR? Like, clearly, me and Steve kind of are more like, you know what I'm saying, in general. Like, what makes you a fan? Like, I just, it's hard for me to really feel like at this point in time in history that VR is something, unless you have like buku bucks to throw at it. Like, it just doesn't feel like the type of thing, in my personal opinion. I could share more about it, but like, why? I don't.
Yeah, so I don't have an argument. Like I don't think I could convince anyone to purchase VR. I think the experiences are very limited right now. A lot of them are kind of the same in a lot of ways. So no, I don't have a convincing argument to get somebody into VR. I personally, I think I just like the novelty of it. Like what exists in VR now, you can't get anywhere else. And so that's why I like it. And so, the same reason why we play certain genres of games, I think that even genres of games that exist on console take on a different light in VR. So like first person shooters, sure, they feel good on console, but I'm 10 feet away from a screen with something in my hands. And so even a shooting range in VR, to me, is just so much more involved than a first person shooter. I don't think it's at the point yet where it feels all that great, but I like where it's headed.
I think, yeah, for sure. What I was trying to say earlier about traversal, what you were saying about motion sickness is definitely true. What I meant was just that, like, people are shoehorning VR retroactively into other games.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a problem because those games were designed, the levels were designed around the idea that you could just walk, and now you can't just walk, or you have to teleport or whatever.
That's true.
Now, on the other hand, some games have been made from the ground up with VR in mind, and usually they are designed. They try to design around those issues. So, like Alex I think it has the teleport, and it also has the walking, like you can choose which one to do, or you can do both or something.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I understand, like people seem to really like it. There probably aren't lots of long hallways and open spaces. It's probably a lot of, corridors and stuff. And like Boneworks, I know, is a lot of corridors. I think it is. I guess I don't know anything, but I think part of what will make VR eventually good is AAA studios building games from the ground up with VR in mind,
mm-hmm.
and designing around those problems.
One of the
coupled
games,
with better hardware.
One of the game genres that I actually haven't experienced in VR that I heard was very, surprisingly good was 3D platformers. And the reason why people said it was good was because you can navigate the space from that distance, because the camera is usually pulled out on 3D platformers. So whenever you're in the VR space, it's usually like a diorama where you can see the space from all angles. You can walk around it. Maybe you can spin it around. But it just, I guess, again, to the point about, it being in VR just kind of revitalizes whatever the genre is. It just takes on a different form.
And I was actually going to mention this. I think one of the biggest problems that VR deals with is sometimes people think about it as it has to be me, the player, right? Like I'm the protagonist, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm holding the sword. I'm holding the gun. Like you can do the diorama, the God game. I mean, if you think about most games that are third person anyway, at the end of the day, you're not really playing the character. You're controlling the character. You know what I'm saying? And I think like VR, yeah, like that's where you're the camera, like you, the 3D person, are the camera, and you're controlling them via the controls. Feels like a much better experience. Matter of fact, there's a game, I cannot recall its name, but it's like people said it's one of the best VR games that's ever been made. Is exactly what Kyle is mentioning. It's like you're just playing 3D. I don't think it's a 3D platformer per se, but it's a 3D game where you move around the environment and you're just the camera. And they say it's like so incredible because it's super immersive. Like you're in the world, you're experiencing it, and you don't really get the motion sickness because it's not you moving. It's like the world is just kind of moving, like just moving around you, I guess you could say. Like, and they just did a perfect balance of it. And I feel like there's too many games like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna hold the sword, and right. Nah, sometimes that's not, what's fun in a game. Like you don't have to be first person, to be good.
And I think it hits a similar dynamic that AR games do, where AR allows you to still be a pretty comfortable spectator, where, like you said, most VR games put you in the driver's seat even when it's not the most optimal experience. And so, yeah, these ones where you're just the camera, it gives you much more liberty to take things at your own pace, because especially in combat heavy VR games, you have to constantly be moving in order to not take damage or something. And, without the haptic feedback, which I hear people are kind of divided on, like who wants to feel like they're being shot or stabbed. I understand that. But
sure want to feel that stabbing. My favorite part of the game. Love
this haptic vest is laced with blades. I think until we get there, even if that stuff maybe doesn't come, I don't know, it's still gonna feel disjointed whenever you're in that first person experience, one way or another.
Yeah. I feel like it's just one thing that I think is probably holding VR back the most is the myopic focus on gaming, and even like if you think about like other mediums that have like just movies or video or writing or whatever, like it's kind of like you're creating the best thing for that medium, right? irrelevant of what it is, right? Like, oh, I'm going to write poems. That's a great way to write something. Or I'm going to write short stories. I'm going to write books. I'm going to write this. Like, I'm going to make games. I'm going to make them about shopping. I'm going to make them about shopping. Sorry. I'm going to make them about fighting people. I'm going to make them about, hard decisions. Like, you're going to make the best game for the platform. If you think about Mario 64 versus, Super Mario, 2 or whatever, like, they're the best game for their platform, right? Mm-hmm. They're the best experience for their platform. And I feel like the problem is we're kind of stuck in this world where we're trying to, like Steve said, port things over. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I want to make the coolest game in VR. Like, why not just make the best VR, whatever it is?
Experience.
Yeah. Like, focus on that. Take out all our, misconceptions or whatever we think and all the things that we bring from other things and just make, like in y'all's mind, what do you think is the best VR experience that, like, I guess, you're not in it day in and day out, but what do you think would, like, really, really resonate in VR? If you could think of something, because I don't know. I mean, I can shoot because I have ideas, but
yeah, let's hear them. What you got?
Like one thing for me that I always think about is that, like, VR, like, going back to the terrible game where it was terribly made, but it made you scared. It scared me personally and scared everybody, honestly,
didn't scare me.
Didn't scare me. I wasn't shook. Like, Steve is clearly a sociopath, so no, I'm kidding.
That's true. Sociopaths are known for not ever being scared.
As he says it in a very, like, matter of fact voice, like, we're not scared to kill.
We sociopaths are not scared.
We feel no fear or remorse.
But I don't know. I think I always think about this idea of, like, telling a narrative inside, like, you are sitting in a room. Like, imagine the creation story, for example, and you're just watching it happen around you, right? Like, and it's a 3D world, not a video. I don't want no videos. I want a 3D world with its own artistic style. And as God creates light, you see light appear in the distance, like far away from you. And as it comes towards you, and then he's creating the earth. And then you're on earth and you're seeing it happen around, like, something where you're kind of immersed in an experience. It's more of it's not a game. It's not, it's more of, maybe, I guess, a movie, but more of an interactive tale that you might not even be able to do anything. You may be able to touch the stars or grab animals and pet them or something, but it has to really make sense to that thing. So to me, I feel like experiences where you're completely surrounded by something happening, the world changing, like, maybe I want to experience what it would be like to be in space. I've heard there's some really cool space, simulators, but, like, not just, oh, I want you to scientifically know where the North Star is or something. It's more of like, how can I make you feel like you're in a place, beyond, like, oh, I want you to have the most interactive experience. You know what I'm saying? That's, to me, the virtual reality experience. Something that almost your mind will make up the gaps, right? Like, when you're reading a book, you hear the characters talking, like, how can you use VR to, I don't know, to allow the player, the experiencer to use a little bit of imagination and enjoy that experience. I don't know. And music, I think music is key as well. I think
the sound design,
sound design has to be key.
I can agree with that, because I actually did watch the majority of, if not an entire VR movie that was for free on the Quest, and it pretty much had all the elements you were mentioning. It was an animated movie about these birds. I have no idea what they were doing. I don't remember. The story to me wasn't very interesting, but
birds will be birds.
Yeah, they were birding it up.
That's the name of it. Birds will be birds. Just birds.
They were called unhappy birds.
Dang. That's unhappy.
And so one of the things that was interesting about it to me is, I do my best and stuff like that, because it was pretty early when I got my Quest. I did my best to try to break the movie. And so obviously there's a place that it wants you to look. And so I would, on purpose, look away from that place and try to find the seams in the experience and the breakdowns and the transitions. And in some ways, I was successful. Like, I would see when things would phase in and out of existence because I wasn't supposed to be looking in the right. I wasn't supposed to be looking that direction. And so it didn't, for me, that's the type of experiences that I like in VR, is things where I have complete control. I like urgency in a game as much as anyone else, but if something's happening around me and I can just kind of, just observe everything and see little nuances, because I think that's also a breakdown of like what we were talking about. Ported games, they're built with something in mind already, and a lot of the textures and the things that happen were built because you were going to stay on a linear path, and you could only see certain things when you played the game in its original state. And so yeah, when these experiences are built, I guess, more grand, and then you can navigate within a space, I think that's where my favorite experiences have been so far.
I've got one.
All right.
So you just inspired me, Kyle.
You're welcome.
You're my inspiration.
You know how these RPGs are all about choices, right? And you can build up your different stats. You know, you can become a smooth talking rogue thief who can pick locks and talk his way out of anything. And like the game will literally give you different dialogue options in order to, you know, fulfill your different skills and give you different ways to solve problems and interact with characters and so on and so forth. Follow me so far?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how cool would it be if on top of that, or you had a game that did that stuff, but also hid options in the way that you observe the world. So imagine you're in a situation where you and your two, I don't know, compatriots are about to, it's the dead of night, and you and your two friends are about to go and storm this castle, right? You know, so you're trying to break in and steal the MacGuffin and get away without getting killed. Mm-hmm. And so your two friends are arguing, and most games, maybe they would have you focus on the two guys arguing, and you have to pick the right dialogue options based on your stats and your skills and, you know, your player intuition. Thank you. You have to pick the right dialogue options in order to like stop the argument or make whatever outcome you want happen. Now imagine that you can do that if you watch them and you see their facial reactions, and maybe one's lying because you're paying close attention to seeing what he's saying and how he says it. And then you can say, actually, I don't think you're telling the truth. Or you can look around and see that you're about to be ambushed by the castle guard who saw you earlier and are making their way slowly across the moat on the other side. And if you see them early enough, you can alert your friends and stop the ambush. And so, like, depending on what you do, the options change.
So are you a character? You're a character in the experience.
This is a first-person game. Yeah. Okay. You're a character. Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, that type of dynamic, I think, is definitely what virtual reality should be used for, because you always have that 360 view, and so just living in the real world, like I think we mentioned earlier, that reality, you know, there's an expectancy that even though I'm looking this way, doing something this way, that something should be going on behind me. And if I'm curious enough, I can look back there and see what it is. But you also made me think of something else that I think is really missing from most VR experiences. Like when you were talking about, you know, conversations and dialogue, like in a lot of ways a lot of games you can choose what to say sort of and have options. But like if there was some sort of speech to text or text to speech, I think in a game like that, then that would be the next level where you were actually talking to the characters in the games. Because one of the most popular VR games that I know of right now is VR Chat. And it's because I think it fulfills pretty much everything that has been a disparity in VR experiences so far, which is you're in an MMO pretty much. It's not, you know, you're not trying to level up and stuff, but there's other people around. It's all voice chat. They have their different avatars. Some of those people have full body, you know, tracking, while other people just have their headsets. But, you know, the models that they use figure out what their feet are supposed to be doing based on where they're looking, if they're supposed to be sitting. And it's got like all those different boxes that you need to tick for something to feel convincing enough to be a virtual reality space. And so, yeah, if you could somehow get all that stuff into a single player experience, I think you would strike gold.
Oh, so maybe a system that maybe when you're talking to somebody, instead of having just like options of dialogue or options for like, I feel like in some games they don't give you literal dialogue options. They'll say like, oh, be aggressive or be calming or something. Imagine if you can just, there's no options. It just,
your tone.
You just say something and the game will have some list of like 100 or some ridiculous list of like possible retorts, something that would never fit on a traditional interface, right? And based on what you say, the game will try to match it to one of the pre-existing options. So that way there can still be like, pre-scripted, I guess.
Yeah, under the hoods.
Responses, but your options are so much greater. And it's up to you to discover what they are by trying to say different things.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I'm still surprised hasn't really been adapted into a game in general, is that like there's a lot of AI systems that are trying to create like conversation bots and stuff like that. Like, hey, like you go to the Walmart website, right? And the guy, you see the little box like, do you want to talk to an agent? Like, nah, you're just talking to a bot. And you just ask the bot like, how do I fix this? And how do I do this? How do I change my account? And it like just reads your actual written text. It tries to interpret it and then it like responds. Like it's the whole idea of intents, right? Like it's trying to figure out your intent and based on what you're saying and then your subject matter and your entities, all this stuff that's like AI stuff. But long story short is it's like an actual conversation, right? It really makes a difference. Right. And you know what really came to mind as I was thinking about what you're saying, Steve and Kyle, as you're just like talking, is that the biggest problem I think that VR has is that it's trying to solve a problem before the problem was created. You know what I'm saying? Like think about how gaming entered people's lives, right? People play games, right? They play chess, they play cards, right? And then people in a school somewhere, like, nerdy people, our type of people, were like, yo, it'd be cool if we could play like Battleship, but like virtually, so we wouldn't have to put the board game together every time we do it, right? And they make Battleship in a lab, and then they share it on a server, and then somebody's like, oh, that's cool. And then it just keeps expanding, and then somebody's like, oh, that'd be cool if you could play, Dungeons and Dragons in virtual, like, da-da-da. Like, and they just kept doing it, and it was like they're trying to solve a problem, right? Like, games kind of solve the problem that people are looking for. Like, wouldn't it be cool if I was a lady who was in the future who had shot electronic dinosaurs with a bow and arrow, and I can, like I'm Horizon Zero Dawn, right?
Sounds familiar.
Fresh on the brain,
like,
huh?
Like it's like you're trying to fulfill somebody's imagination and put them in that experience, right? To play that, like, what would it be like to be that person, or what would it be like to do this or that? And I feel like VR doesn't have a problem yet. Like, it's like we have really cool technology. But we're just trying to figure out where it fits. Maybe we do it in gaming. Maybe we do it in industry. Maybe we make a Walmart simulator that looks like trash. Maybe we make the Metaverse. Maybe we do weird Bitcoin. Who knows what's next? But it's like searching for a solution, for a problem, a solution looking for a problem, and I don't know. I feel like it's going to always be kind of mediocre until it really has a problem to solve,
I think it's so tough because VR, I guess, inherently is just so open-ended. Like you could, if somebody could even like theoretically physically do it, like you can fly in VR, right? But you can't fly. And so it's like, I saw a video of somebody doing graffiti in VR the other day. Did one of you guys post that? I saw that somewhere. But
I think me and you saw it, Kyle. I don't think Brad saw it.
But it was like this hyper-realistic simulation of spray paint on a wall. And I guess
it looks really cool.
I guess it's a graffiti artist, but the barrier that having this, I guess, simulation broke was that, first off, he didn't actually go and paint on a wall, potentially get in trouble. but like you can see what he was seeing in the headset, and so he had like just an infinite amount of colors at his disposal. He didn't have to grab a ladder to spray paint the top of the piece. You know, he could move as far away from or as close to it as possible. He wasn't limited by physical space. There weren't any cars driving down the road. There weren't any people. Like, and so it's just crazy. Like, I guess the amount of possibilities to go along with, like you were saying, solving that problem. It's like, you know, what do you solve for? Like, what direction do you head? Because everything as of right now, it seems like it's on a level playing field as far as interaction, because nobody knows the reason someone would flock to virtual reality. That hasn't been discovered.
I do think that when I was going to bring that up too, I think one strength of virtual reality would be, I was complaining earlier about the Walmart UI, right? I'm like, it's better just be on the website. It's better to just go in person. Like, either of those two is better than having this janky 3D space. However, on the other hand, I think something like Photoshop or, you know, other like drawing programs could have really cool and really intuitive and like easy to use interfaces in a 3D space, or architecture programs. You know, any like 3D CAD, anything with creation, especially in a 3D space, that's harder on a computer because it's a 2D screen. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's maybe it would be in the realm of AR again, but I think that's close enough to VR to count.
Yeah. And even like a virtual workspace with multiple screens, then you don't have actual screens in your house. You just put on the headset and you can have 50 screens, you know.
Yeah, if it could really augment, you know, like make what you're doing, like, yeah, like, oh, instead of you buying 10 monitors, you know, for your house, right, and you have to pay for them, like you said, you have 10 monitors and you use your actual keyboard in real life, right, and you use your mouse, but you have like an extended display. That'd be really cool. Yeah, I've never thought about that. Like why not just use it as a productivity tool, right? Something that, you know, you were talking about the VR chat game, or whatever that was. Like, even that is like, makes a lot of sense, because it's like, for people, we're stuck in a virtual world as it is. COVID definitely is exacerbated that. But like, any way that we can have a connection with people more closely, and, you know, I've never played a multiplayer experience in VR or multi-person experience at all, but I can only imagine how much more quote unquote immersive it feels to talk to your friend in virtual reality than it is to do it via text. You know, like Steve was saying, like, oh yeah, like, why am I going to go to a more subpar experience instead of just going to the Walmart website? Like, why not start focusing on things that are more amplified, that are better? You know, I think it's one of those things where the big problem is that money hasn't really flooded itself into the VR industry yet, right? Like, the reason that we have like such incredible games is because somebody said, yo, son, we can make a lot of money off of this. Right. So we're going to pump 100 million into making a game because we're going to make 500 million. And like, until we have that adoption of VR in a way like that could hit more of a mass audience, you know, like, I feel like we're going to be hindered on our experiences, because it's always going to be kind of avant-garde, right? Somebody who has extra money to throw at a thing. Yeah. But it's never going to be like, you know, EA or Activision really throwing their money, you know, at it.
And it seems like the ones that are putting money into it, a lot of it is still going into research. Because if you just search VR, a lot of peripherals come up and a lot of attachments come up, a lot of like advancements in the screens and the sounds and the haptic feedback of if you have the controllers, I guess they're called, or if you actually wear the gloves. People are actually trying to make like these full body suits, and it's like, I don't know. Like, what is it going to take for them to divert that money, I guess, into just making the experience itself alluring enough to kind of justify these extra things? Or do they think that all these peripherals and attachments is what's going to push it over the edge?
Let me ask you a question, Kyle and Steve. what makes you buy a video game console?
I'll let you know after I buy the PS5.
I mean,
So scarcity.
Scarcity. But really, you know the answer. The answer is software, right? Like, without something to buy that's worth it. Like, if I could get the experience that a PS5 could give me anywhere else, I would go to anywhere else.
Especially if it was cheaper.
Especially if it was cheaper, you know, and I didn't have to go through the crazy process that I had to go to get it, right? Like, why would I do it? And I think that's the thing. VR still hasn't given us something that truly you cannot experience anywhere else. You know, like, I can talk to my friends in real life. I can, you know, like, there's just something that it's trying too hard to be like reality. You know, it has to, like, Kyle, was it you who shared the MMO that, like,
oh yeah, what was it called?
I can't remember what it was called.
Zenith or something like that.
Zenith. Yeah. I don't think that's a system seller per se, but
no.
I think it's one of those situations where if it was actually good and great and awesome, like, and it was an experience that you could not, like, wow, like, it's not even, like, you don't even call it an MMO, you know, you call it a VR, blah, 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 right? Like, it has to be its own thing. Like, I'm going to get a PlayStation 6 if they make God of War 4 in the way that they did it this last one, because it's such an experience that you cannot experience any other way other than having a PC now. Hey, shout out to PC people.
Hey.
God of War. But, like, but at the end of the day, the reason most people buy a system, Xbox or whatever, is because there's something there. Like, I feel like that's the problem, right?
Yeah, I'd agree. It's not really filling a void. And then even when I think this Zenith game, it seems like it's firmly planted in a niche within VR too. So, you know, the demographic of people who would play it just based on the way it looks, I think already narrows down the target audience. Because even though, you know, we're really progressive, like, so Zenith is a game that's very heavily, like, fantasy based as far as the visuals and the gameplay elements. You're pretty much anime characters running around, and that's not everybody's cup of tea.
Flying around
too, yeah. And so you have wings and tails and ears, cat ears and stuff. And, you know, not everybody's going to be into that. So, you know, that just kind of narrows the market as far as, I don't think it's a system seller either, because even if it has great gameplay, in VR, the thing that hits you first is what you're seeing. So if you don't think if what you're seeing isn't pleasant to you, then you're not going to go buy that to experience the rest of it. And with the software side of it on these games, I think it's the same thing. You know, there's a draw of it. Maybe it's the gameplay, but, you know, there definitely has to be that hook. And VR just doesn't have, VR games, I guess, VR software doesn't have that hook yet.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I said earlier, right? I was like, oh yeah, I'm in the market in the future so I can play Half-Life Alyx. Right. Like, right now, Half-Life Alyx is the only game that I'm like actually lusting after. Like, I really need this game so I can play it.
Yeah. But in a way, it's like, it's a cool thing. Like, oh man, it'd be awesome to play Half-Life Alyx, but it's not going to make you go out to the store, spend your hard-earned money on that.
It's not going to make me spend $1,000 on an index.
Exactly.
Yeah, the desire that you have for it doesn't equate the effort you'll have to put in to get it.
Yeah. Like my like, I really want to play Returnal. I really want to play Demon's Soul. Well, I kind of want to play Demon's Souls. You know, I want this. There's a couple. Deathloop. I don't think it's on PS4. Maybe it is, but there's a few PS5 exclusive games that I want to play. But so far, there aren't enough to overcome A, the cost, and B, the effort involved with getting one. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep thinking to myself, I'm not a futurist. I'm not a person who can, like, thinks about the future per se. But I always think to myself, like, is this, like, because they try to do, I mean, I guess Virtual Boy was, like, kind of, sort of, like, a take on VR. Like, you know?
It was just 3D. It wasn't really,
it was virtual reality.
Like, it's what they called it.
Well, you didn't have like a free perspective. But it was literally just a 3D screen.
But here's the thing: what is virtual reality other than a virtual reality? It doesn't matter if it's a perspective or anything. It's just
so MS Paint on Windows 2000.
No. When I say virtual reality, meaning like you see another world with your eyes, right? Like, have you used the
so Mac OS?
Have you used the Virtual Boy? Have you used the Virtual Boy?
No, I haven't. I don't want to go blind.
Yeah, I've used the Virtual Boy, and you won't go blind. You'll get a headache, but definitively, when you put your eyes in the Virtual Boy, the only thing you experience is the Virtual Boy. There's no other. That's the only reality, right? If I'm playing a video game on my TV, my wife can come up and talk to me, and I can have a conversation and play with her, or talk with her. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think the key fundamental thing about virtual reality is it removes you from your current reality completely, like in the sense in a visual way, like
it's got to take you,
and that's why.
So I feel like that's a really arbitrary thing. You said in a visual way, but that's very convenient because that's the only way that the Virtual Boy is virtual reality. Because
that's the only way that
even
the Oculus
even current
really
current
is.
VR is barely virtual reality.
That's the only way that Oculus is. That's the only way that the Vive is. It's literally a visual component.
It's not just the visual component. It's the movement. It's the
they didn't have movement originally. It's more in the more recent iterations of virtual reality. Like most of the experiences that people have had hasn't been a controller based experience. It's been literally just the goggles, and you might touch the goggles themselves. That was your haptic input, right? Like
no, but you could still turn your head, and the perspective would try to move with you, right? That's a hallmark of all these helmets.
I think that's just an advancement in virtual reality. Just like nowadays, there's motion controls. It didn't make the Atari any less of a video game system. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because it was the earliest predecessor on the scale, it was the beginning of virtual reality. Maybe not even the beginning, but one of the steps. Right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I get what you're saying about advancements, but then I'm saying I don't think the Virtual Boy was a great enough advancement over something like Mac OS when they first introduced an icon-based, not virtual OS, but like a virtual space that had buttons that looked like you were moving things between locations. Like, to me, that would be the first virtual reality if you're willing to.
I think that you should use a Virtual Boy because I think that you'll go, oh, now I see why it was such a big deal at the time and why it gives you massive headaches. But it's like, it literally took you, like, yeah, it was like a game, right? A video game, and it was in front of you. But the biggest thing is that you were in that space. Like, you didn't, like, even a Mac OS is just it's a computer, right? But like, as far as like the spectrum of what a person who considers virtual reality is, the Virtual Boy is on that spectrum, but the Mac OS is not. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not a thing that's going to remove you from your current reality, if that makes sense. The Virtual Boy does that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the breakdown of like what makes something like an alternate reality, whether it's virtual or it's augmented, is that it hijacks your senses in a way. And so, like computer screens in general don't necessarily do that. They're placed in front of you, while something on your head, that takes full advantage of your eyes, your view, your point of view. And even if it involves your ears, that's I think a deeper level of the immersion into this alternate reality. And so I think that's what makes a distinction between a headset and a screen. I think they're both viable options as far as you're in the virtual world, you're in cyberspace, quote unquote. You're doing things that you can't do in reality, sure, but I don't think that they're in the same plane.
And I still disagree. I think if you've played any action game, especially like a shooter or something, whether it's on a big screen or a little screen, when you're in the heat of the moment, you're not thinking about the room you're in or the controller in your hand or the headphones on your head. You're completely zoned into the world in the game.
I think you can still be immersed without being transported. Like,
I mean,
okay. Sure.
Essentially, you could say that an ebook is a virtual reality because it's virtual and you can be immersed. but that's not the delineation that a person, the parlance of the word, the world that people use for virtual reality. Just like video game, you could maybe say a board game is a game, but it's not a video game. You know, like there's
Sure.
the nuances.
And I'm saying that the Virtual Boy is a 3D, but it's not a virtual reality.
I think
but that's fine.
I just think that it's like somebody talking about virtual. You've experienced virtual reality, so you know the difference between like what it is and what it isn't, and it's like hard to describe to somebody like what it's like to put a virtual reality headset on, right? Like, oh, like you're in the world, it's immersive, da 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 da. I'm just saying that the Virtual Boy is what we experience now with the Oculus, just on the lowest level, like
limited by the technology of the time.
Yeah, of the time, right? Like,
yeah, definitely.
It's not good. It being good doesn't mean that it doesn't fall into that class. And really, I mean, maybe if we want to be very, very specific, really where we are right now is we're in the virtual reality headset realm, right? Like
Correct,
they all fall within that. Right now, virtual reality, it's kind of like the metaverse. Like it really doesn't mean anything when you think about it. But what people really mean by it is virtual reality headset. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, the Oculus or the Vive, like, I mean, I don't really know where they could go. I mean, in y'all's opinion, like, do you think there's a next step in virtual reality beyond the ocular sense, the headset? Like, and I mean, I guess now it's the haptic, right? Through the controllers. But does it really go any further than that in a realistic standpoint, other than some dude who makes a giant suit where you get stabbed? Like, in a commercial sense, do you think that virtual reality goes deeper than the headset or the controller in the long term?
I think if a Neuralink thing is ever really perfected, that would probably be the new virtual reality.
I don't think they're going to stop until they get something close to that, for sure.
So you think
but yeah, I think that's I feel like there's steps in between here and there, but yeah, I definitely think that they're going to work towards. They're going to connect you directly, like
Sword Art Online.
Yeah, no screens.
Yeah, I guess I forgot about Neuralink, but yeah, that feels like the end, right? The end game of it all.
Yeah, because that's like your consciousness, right?
No, I think the end game is you lose your body and your entire consciousness is living in a digital realm.
Ooh,
that's the true virtual reality. Like, you know, we're past the point where you can no longer tell the difference between real and reality, or real and virtual. Now we're at the point where the real world is gone. It's you. It is inaccessible. You'll always be.
So virtual. Your virtual reality is your reality.
Yeah.
Sword Art Online.
That's the end game. Ooh. No, that's like Sword Art. That's like
you're saying you put your consciousness completely in Sword Art Online.
Yeah, that's like the digital dead.
Never take it out.
See.
That was the premise. That was the premise of one of the books I read, or one of the premises. They had virtual reality, like brain dive stuff, and when you died, they would essentially upload you into heaven. Like they had a heaven server, and you could go talk to your dead loved ones.
There's a show
pay
about
a lot of money.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Happy Place or whatever. I think like when you die, they upload you to heaven, like, which is a happy place. I think that's what it's called. Like,
I don't remember that probably was the name of it. It was streaming on one of those.
Yeah, I think it's or Good Place or the Good something like that.
The Good Place? Oh, they upload people on that? I thought that was actually heaven.
Yeah, like that's the premise of it. It's like you can choose to do that on your death. Yeah, the Good Place. Sorry, not the happy.
Oh, so they all exist in like the Matrix? I had no idea.
It's like in one of the first episodes, the guy meets his virtual assistant. At the same? Are we thinking of the same show?
Is it?
I mean, she's real.
The main character is a woman.
It's a woman, and then it's like the virtual assistant. There's a whole bunch of them, but it's like a black dude,
I'm not thinking of the same show.
There's a whole bunch of them. That's the thing. Like the first
Yeah,
episode,
I 100% guarantee Kyle does not know what we're talking about.
if he's talking about on Amazon Prime, then it's probably The Good Place. In the first episode is kind of what he's describing.
So I can remember. So the first episode, there was this young guy, and he was in a self-driving car. Somebody changed it and made it to where like they weren't supposed to crash, but somebody
His
hacked
girlfriend. It was his girlfriend. Yeah.
She made it. She hacked it, made it crash to the back of a garbage truck, and he died and woke up in this place.
Yeah, so she did that because he didn't want to back up his life virtually, and she basically wanted to force him to do that. But like it kind of backfired a little bit. Like she was trying to like make him do something, and
yeah, so it's the same show then.
Yeah, it's the same show. That's the first episode, and then it just goes all over the place from there.
I think me and Julia only got past the first episode.
Yeah,
that's not surprising. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it's like, I think that's like it. Like the virtual reality is like in our minds we're trying to mimic reality, and we kind of went back to this, but it's like, is that what we need right now? Like, is that what people want? Like maybe
I think the last 2 years people have kind of wanted it, but I think if given the choice between virtual reality or going back to actual society, people would choose society. So
I think you're maybe too optimistic.
He's like, you believe in people too much. Have you seen Facebook?
Have you seen the Metaverse? Have you seen the Walmart shopping VR experience?
I want to shop at Walmart the rest of my existence.
Yo, Facebook, aka Meta, they're really doubling down on this though.
They really are.
They believe in it in a core way because I don't know if y'all seen a commercial for this thing called Workplace. Have y'all seen that? It's like,
sounds familiar.
I don't mean to say this way, but it seems like one of those. Have you ever seen like a horror movie or something where there's like a cult and it shows all these like really happy people like, I love being here at Biodyne. It makes me feel so great. And it's all these people like talking about how great it is. And and it's like, check us out at biodyne.com. Like, but you don't really know what it is. It's just like, It's like just an introduction to get those people who are intrigued. There's this thing called Workplace. And it's like basically that, like, man, are you tired of not having the ability to do what you want to do? And it shows like all these different people in different workplaces and having like personalized things to them, something unique to them that makes them feel special. Like it shows like a doctor with a little pen with a really fuzzy unicorn on top of it. It shows a janitor kind of guy with a shirt that says boss man on it. It's like, you can be yourself in wherever you are when you're working, da-da-da. And it's like Workplace. And at the bottom, it says a Meta company. And I was like, oh, what is this?
Wait, how would a janitor work remotely through virtual reality?
See, I don't know. I haven't really looked into it yet. I just noticed that today that it's a Meta company. And I was like, what? Like, I thought
he's the only one that comes in.
Yeah. Like, nah, you can wear that because nobody else is around. It's just you.
He's literally the boss man. He runs the company. He just has to clean up after himself.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I thought it was Workday at first, like the HR system thing. But I realized, oh no, wait, this is a different thing. And it's this, maybe I'm tripping, but I'm pretty sure that's what I saw today when I saw the commercial.
That sounds like something they would do.
Yeah. And I feel like that's Facebook's goal, is like to force, because you ever think about this? Like, Facebook has a captive audience, more or less.
Oh, yeah.
But I wonder if Facebook was like, hey, you know how we'd be giving this to you for free? Instead, you pay $10 a month for it. Like, how many people would stick around? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, I honestly think there'd be a mass exodus, right?
Of course.
And I think that they know that their product isn't good enough to pay for, but it's good enough to be free. If that makes sense. Like, for people to still take your data and sell it. But like, I wonder if they're trying to convert a lot of those people who are like Facebook people and stuff like that to this metaverse, almost like secretly, like on the slick, like, hey, check out Workplace. You can hang out there, Oh,
I mean, Facebook
like,
has been They've been kind of notorious for like implementing changes, suffering like a huge backlash, but then just not
Just
going
shouldering
back.
the backlash.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
so I wouldn't be
Speaking
surprised.
of that, slight tangent here. I've often complained about Facebook's mobile site, and over the past like year, it was getting worse and worse. And then I noticed a couple of weeks ago, like, oh, a lot of the issues I have been fixed, like fixed really well. I'm like, were they working towards a goal this whole time?
They were listening.
Do I need to trust? I hope they were listening. I had left very scathing feedback.
Just you.
Just
were they
your
working towards a
versions of
goal? Did I have to trust Daddy Facebook the entire time?
Daddy Facebook.
Daddy Facebook. Absolutely not. Do not trust Facebook with anything.
Daddy Meta.
Daddy
Mr.
Meta.
Book, can I call you Face? If you wouldn't mind.
Like,
Meta Daddy.
if there's one company you do not want to trust, it's Meta. Like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of start to a company is stealing someone else's name?
Bruh.
When you have the money, right? You just sue them to oblivion, or you
Did
buy
they
them.
did they pay them? I forgot.
I
heard
don't know
about
where that sits.
You know that man is dead. Sorry, I said that. I'm sorry. I mean,
Whoa.
you know that man had his Facebook account deactivated. He sent a message, "Hey guys, I'm gonna take some time away from Facebook. I'm moving to a country that I have no relationships in. I think I'm
We're going to get
stay
this
there."
thing figured out with Facebook.
I'm moving to the South Pole for long-term research.
And don't
We're still in
worry.
conversations. Communications with
Don't
Facebook.
worry if you don't hear from me. It's because that's the best thing for the research. That's what happened.
Did you know that if the Earth is flat, there is no South Pole?
It's just up pole, or it's left pole, right pole.
It's just the outer rim.
Oh, so that means definitively that there is no South Pole.
Definitively, we
Because
should.
the Earth is flat.
Oh, no. So we're not going to go down that route because none of us are ready for that.
I'm ready.
I'm not.
I stay ready.
Steve stays
I
ready.
redact my statement.
He's Reggie ready. He's always ready. His body's ready. But I don't know. Okay, I guess like as we're wrapping up, like, what do y'all think about the metaverse? Do you think that like VR is going to bring us into this next level of like
Content.
yeah, do you think that like there's a is the metaverse just a buzzword, or do you think there's some like truth to it? Because I'll share what I think about it, but like I think number one, I think it's a buzzword, but I think it is Meta or Facebook's goal at forcing the adoption of VR.
Yeah.
Just like like you said, like they'll make terrible changes and like people will, I hate it, but they're not going to go anywhere because Facebook is essentially a utility now. Like, I think what they're going to try to do is create a utility in virtual reality where you have to be there in order to be engaged in the community. And what they'll do is they'll secretly start adding features into the quote unquote metaverse that you once had or
You can't
really
access
needed, and you can only access it. It's like Facebook Messenger. I hate that thing so much, but like they're trying to like force it into other places to make you keep using it. It's like,
And they even made it to where you have to download their secondary app to use it. It used to be part of the Facebook app.
I actually prefer that. And here's why. Because I don't have the Facebook app. I'd never want the Facebook app installed on any device that I own, or preferably no device on my Wi-Fi network. Unfortunately, Keisha does have the Facebook app, so they probably are listening to me right now.
wait, you think that Facebook Messenger is not listening to you all the time?
What I was getting at is that Messenger, I'm not really installing Messenger or anything from Facebook. You have to take that chance. I do think that specifically listening to me, I was exaggerating earlier. It's definitely not. We've talked about this. Your phone's not listening to you all the time. That'd be crazy.
Believe that if you want.
Regardless, security aside, I just don't need this buggy, bloated, giant app on my phone. I have the Messenger Lite app on my phone. It doesn't have emotes. It doesn't have a bunch of stuff that the main Messenger app has, but it works fine because if someone sends me a message It doesn't notify me. I just get it later when I check. Even if I sign off Facebook on all my other devices and I log out because I want to focus, people can still message me and I can still respond. So I like having it be separate. That's me.
No, I get that. I mean, just know that Facebook is all the same to them. They don't care which one you have. They have all your information there. And I want to say this. Your phone is listening to you all the time. Your devices are listening to you all the time.
Sure, but it's not like the conspiracy that like Facebook is hearing this conversation and they're going to give me ads for headsets. I don't think so.
So they aren't doing that in a way that'll get them in trouble. But they are doing that. There's a reason that if you say the words that I may not mention because your devices will turn on, that
their names,
that they'll respond because they are always listening. Always. This is never off. What they do is
but that's not the same as recording your conversations and sending them to a server to be analyzed.
What they do
ad targeted
is they do that periodically and at random intervals as not to be we're listening to any particular person. They anonymize it. Then they have third-party contractors go through that data and that information, and they go through and they not transliterate it, but they transcribe it to see what people like. There's a very robust system that's happening, and that's neither here nor there. But to say that, like, I think that's why the metaverse is a thing. They're trying to create as many touch points as possible so they can have as much information about you legally and quote unquote anonymized as possible. Because all they have to do is like, oh, we don't know their name. We don't know their actual address, but we know their region, their geographic. We know their age.
We know their demographic.
Yeah, exactly. And they can just narrow it down. They just have enough of that. And there's petabytes.
Yeah. Oh, they definitely do stuff like that.
You know, so.
And I like what Facebook says when they ask, like, are you listening to us on our devices? They're like, no, we don't need to. That's like the least efficient way to get the information we get from you. Like, they have plenty of other ways. If one of you jokers looks up Oculus headsets after this, I'll probably get ads because they probably know we're talking somehow. If Kiesha looks it up, they definitely will because we're co-located. And so they might just assume that she and I are talking about it. There's all sorts of ways. They don't have to record your conversation.
Yeah, I mean, they said they're not listening to you, but they did not say that we're not recording your conversations.
Right. That's fair.
like they're
I think that's an important distinction, but sure, that's fair.
They're super slick. Like, it's all like, you know, like working in mobile development, like you just learn like so much about like how these systems work and like how they try to lock you out of, you know, like Apple is probably the best at like opting in, but they're still absolutely
props to the Apple
stealing all your information. And once you opt in, you know, it's but anyway, the metaverse, do y'all think that's really going to be a thing?
I think that there's so much money in digital items. Like the games industry
clearly
is really showing this. And I think that once they figure out how to get people in there and offer them something that they want to buy, I don't know what it is. But I'm just saying this, like, I guess broadly. Maybe everybody understands this. But it's like, I think it's going to be like even more intense than we anticipate when VR becomes mainstream and people start buying things digitally in VR, like that they interact with in VR on a daily basis. I think that's going to be like a huge transition point for the world.
Yeah, I wonder, like, practically what that would even look like, though, because with my phone, I have it in my pocket. You know, I can very easily take it out of my pocket, interact with it with one hand, unless you have, you know, a modern phone, two hands, and put it back in my pocket. I can do that during a meeting. I can do that while I'm on the toilet. I can do that on an airplane. VR, at least the headsets, don't really lend themselves to that.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
Not just portability, but also just like the space that you need to really interact in a VR space. I feel like it's not going to become super ubiquitous like that unless we're somehow projecting, you know, with like HoloLens. I think Microsoft has HoloLens that you kind of just wear it and then it projects into the space around you. Even then, like, what are you going to do? Keep it around your neck when you're not using it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I think you make a really good point that the biggest problem is that, like, it removes you from the reality that you're currently in. Like,
Right.
Facebook is, once again, just on your phone. So if you're at the store waiting in line using Facebook and the clerk goes, "Hey, sir, can I help you?" You can put your phone in your pocket, right? But
Yeah.
even if the light, like you said, like, optimally, probably the best way is for light to just beam on your cornea, right? Through some device, like you said, that's hanging around your neck or something. Like, that's still absolutely obscuring the most important, one of the most, not the most important, one of the most important senses that you need to operate in reality. So it's always going to fundamentally be a tool that's used in safe spaces, I guess, right? Like,
Yeah.
Even in
Your bedroom.
even in Ready
Well, not
Player
your bedroom,
One,
but in your house.
though, I think one of the things that they kind of showed, and I don't know if it was intentional, but yeah, like, everybody was using it in safe spaces, and then the world fell apart because people weren't leaving their houses. And so I think maybe in the transition phase, then that may be a possibility where somebody, has their VR headset in a line somewhere. But I think once it actually gets to the point where it's mainstream, like fully integrated, those lines won't exist. Like, people will be at their house with their headset on.
I feel like you're right in the sense that, and this might sound bad, but I feel like if they do it right, VR can essentially become the next drug, right? An escape from reality. Because, most people, if you look at drug addict research and if you've talked to drug addicts, a lot of times it's not like, oh, I just do drugs because, and like an addict, like somebody who's addicted hardcore and it's like ruining their life. They don't just do it because, oh, like, it feels good. They normally do it because they're trying to escape something. There's pain, there's trauma, there's something that, like, yeah, it's better than my actual reality. It's better for me to be high on X than for me to live in this situation, and I feel like that's where VR is going to maybe, if it becomes ubiquitous, if they find a way to make it cheap, if they find a way to make it more universal, so people don't get motion sick or eyewear or headaches or whatever, like, I feel like it's gonna thrive on vulnerable populations, people who are looking for that escape, and there'll be the Ready Player One type people who live in the tough world, and there'll be the people who live off of that, like, who live in a real world and they have fancy things and enjoy life and they don't need Ready Player One. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll really take over places like nursing homes, rehabilitation places, people who are stuck in the hospital for months. Like, I think those people would probably be like the high priority targets just because they can't go into reality, society. And then if they can get it to where it works well for them, I think they probably would have made it to where it could work well for anyone.
They're basically like not to say the test population, but they're like if you can win this population, you can find a way to start working
to iterate.
Yeah, to get because it's like, think about like how games can somewhat be addictive, like where sometimes you're like, man, I'm just gonna play this game instead of doing the responsibility that I need to do, right? Like you're trying to escape, or you're at work and you have a bad day and you're just like, man, I just got to get home and play some game, or media can do that in general, as an escape, but you don't really get a chance to escape because you're still in the real world,
I still think that the problem of like the logistics of entering and exiting the VR world are going to be a real stepping stone, a real stumbling block, because workspace, imagine for like workspace, like you log into work, right? You put your headset on, you get your space ready, you're at home, and you do your thing. Like, that's not something, even video games now, like Game Boys and Nintendo Switches are probably the most like low
impact,
low commitment devices, like you put it in your pocket if you have big pockets, and you can you whip it out on a train or something, and you can't do it while you're walking. You can't do it even then. Even as cool as it is, like there's still you still like can't just be in VR all the time or be in the game all the time.
Well, what if,
or even most of the time?
let me throw a scenario at you. What if workplaces implemented VR and it was at a point where the technology was, really advanced enough, battery, heating, all this stuff. And basically, I guess you don't even need battery if you have workstations. And at your cubicle, instead of a laptop screen, like, when we were at IBM, we had these little small cubicle spaces. What you do is you sit down, you have your headset sitting on your desk that is assigned to you. Your headset has noise-proof, canceling headphones in it. It has the thing you just slip on your head. It connects once you're on. It recognizes it, turns on, wakes up. And when you do that, you're now in a workspace with whatever relevant team anywhere in the world together. And so you can have 100 people in a room, but they don't interact with each other. They can't hear each other. And they can just, like, what if it becomes that simple? Just slip it on your head and you're there. Like, boom, and you can interact.
And then the safe controlled place that you become the routine is your desk.
I think that's pretty close.
Like 9 to 5.
That's different. That's different from like Ready Player One, where people are just in and out all the time. But yeah, I think that's actually pretty feasible even now.
Yeah, because pretty much 9 to 5, right? That's a safe space. We're all in the office.
Yeah, take it off every every hour
go
or two.
Eat lunch. And
walk. Yeah.
Or if they were really clever, what you do is like you eat lunch in your virtual reality, and it's like some person in reality puts your lunch in front of you at your desk.
They're spooning the food into your mouth.
But this person is playing a VR game where you're feeding monkeys.
Yes, and you have to be faster and you get rewards. And there's like little machines in your chair that massage your legs so that you always have blood circulation.
Wow.
I mean,
speaking of blood circulation,
yes, we're definitely hitting the end. And I just want to note this because I did just briefly look up if I was crazy about Workplace being owned by Meta. 100% is just as like we do a thing on their website, but essentially just looking at it is that it's basically the place where all your tools can get integrated into one. Google, Dropbox, Slack, blah 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 blah, or your HR, your blah blah blah. So their whole goal is to consolidate everything into one space, into your workplace, and then you'll be trapped there. All of your tools, basically all third-party tools, will be in their workplace space. And then I think the next step is, and they say video and audio, is then to integrate. Oh, now we have a virtual reality feature where you can just put on a set and you can interact with your team and do all these things in here. Like, and they're slick. They're building toward it.
No doubt.
The human cost, it doesn't matter. We getting that money. Yeah, I mean, any last words on virtual reality before we wrap it up today, fellas?
I'm curious to see.
Y'all ever hear about this show VR Troopers? It was like a Power Rangers type show.
VR Troopers? You talking about the old school VR Troopers? Yeah. Man, I love that show. Yeah.
Yeah.
You think
I still have that theme song stuck in my head occasionally.
How does it go?
VR.
Something like,
oh my gosh.
Virtual reality. Like has some sick like guitar riff in the background.
Man. Oh, VR Troopers was fire. Was that the one with the dog?
I don't remember. I just remember some like Daft Punk looking dude walking around.
Oh man, yeah, I used to love VR Troopers. That show was fire. So anyway, yes, that's the beginning, and it was like a Power Rangers. It was basically Power Rangers, but
basically Power
a knockoff.
Yo, Power Rangers was that fire, man.
It still is. It's like on season 9,000.
You're right about that one. I was gonna say, Kyle? I'm looking forward to the day, because right now, being an office worker, we have Lenovo's. Like those are the work PCs. So I'm looking forward to the Lenovo of the VR headset and that progression. That's gonna be
Has a little red nipple in the front, so you can move your cursor around.
Wait. What? Oh, I get you. I thought you were saying that you could control your computer via your nipples. I was like, what?
We should have ended this podcast.
No, I'm talking about the Lenovo.
I get the little
whatever it's called.
I was like,
I've always called it.
yo,
a
this
nipple.
man, it's taking technology to 2072, son.
Bro.
You don't need your hands anymore.
You are the controller. Every human comes with 2 thumbsticks.
All your power is on your nipples. Oh my gosh. Sorry. Lenovo of VR. Continue.
Lenovo VR headset.
Lenovo, yes. That's what you're looking forward to.
Not anymore.
What about you?
I was a few minutes ago.
I'm happy to ruin that for you.
And when you say that, you just mean in the sense of it's like
the generic,
okay.
Mass-produced.
Powerful and reliable, but not too impressive.
It does what it's meant to do.
Yeah.
At a high, relatively quality.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I feel like that's what Google, what were you, Cardboard or Google, what's it called? Dream. Like, it's like a lower end, like, and kind of,
yeah.
But I still feel like there's like a minimum level of VR, kind of like you said, like there's a minimum level computer that you need, you know, power wise.
Your cell phone, apparently.
Yeah. You can't use one of those, like play school laptops. Like what's that thing? The
Leapfrogs?
The Leapfrogs. Like they're computers, but good luck sending email.
They compute.
Leapfrog. Like I can't log into Slack. Anyway, so
Leapfrog VR headset.
Oh man, your eyes would burn so bad. Oh my
Is it supposed to get that hot?
my forehead meat is so hot.
It's just a virtual boy, but hotter.
It is just red and black. It is destroying children's senses early. Like,
I don't understand what happened.
Oh man! But,
they just re-released the Virtual Boy as a Leapfrog headset.
We got to make that money back. Just repackage it. It's for the children. So, on that note, on the Lenovo VR and the Virtual Boy Leapfrog, yeah, the VR future. I'm looking forward to it. I'm like you said, one day it's going to be the Neuralink, and it won't even matter anymore. It's over at that point. But yeah, fellas. Well, I just, as always, just want to thank you guys. Thank you, Kyle.
Always
Thank
a pleasure,
you, Steve. And of course, always thank you to the Super Agile Bros Nation. Thank you to all of our listeners. Please don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube at Super Agile Bros and on Apple Podcasts. As Steve said last week, we are on Apple Podcasts, so check us out there. We're on Spotify, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on SoundCloud, we're on Stitcher. We everywhere. We even on Twitter at the SAB Podcast. Follow us on Twitter.
Coming to virtual reality really soon.
Yes, we're going to be releasing the SAB VR headset. Get ready. Nipple controls only. It's going to be fire. So look out for that. But really, thank you guys. And yes, look out for our Discord server coming soon. Special invites coming out to people soon. So that's going to be popping. We're excited about our Super Agile Bros community. But thank you guys once again for listening. And until next time, peace.
I've got my eye on you, other Steve.